Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Abby Palko, the director of the Maxine Platzerlin Women's Center. Thank you for being here with us today. I am coming to you from the Women's Center, so I am coming to you from Monacan tribal land. I thought I would pause to start this evening with a moment of silence for those who have been harmed by or lost their lives to COVID, the economic crisis that has followed, and racial violence. Thank you for making time to be here tonight to hear our updates about the Women's Center. We see this as a mark of your ongoing support for us, particularly making time in a moment, as my opening indicated, when life is a little chaotic and there are multiple challenges that people are dealing with. We appreciate your support. The plan for this evening is I will talk in two segments. First, about some of the strengths that we are excited to build on moving forward, and then we'll pause for some questions. And then in the second half, I'll talk about some of the challenges and opportunities that we see for this upcoming year. And I'll follow that with time for questions as well. You are welcome to put questions in the chat. Leanne will be helping me manage those when it's time for the Q&A. And then you will see that she is muting us all, except for me. And that she set the screen to speaker view. That will hopefully make it easier. I'll be sharing the screen throughout this afternoon with some slides to show you and a couple of video clips. And just a quick note, we are recording this event so that you know that it'll be available for people to see afterwards who were interested but weren't able to come. And so with that, I will start off by sharing some of the strengths that we will be building on this year. So I just marked my 4th anniversary as the director of the Women's Center. And last year we celebrated the center's 30th anniversary. So moving forward into our 4th decade, thinking about our strengths, if I started anywhere but with the team, that would be the wrong place to start. So the most important strength we have are the people who work for us here. And in the last 4 years, 3 years or so, there's been some significant change in the team. A couple of the younger staff members have left for new professional opportunities. A couple of senior staff members have retired. And then with those retirements, some longstanding staff members have been promoted into new positions. And so with these changes on the team, we've spent the last year or so working on developing a strategic vision for us moving forward. And that culminated in a project that we wrapped up just a couple of weeks ago. So I'm going to start the sharing here. We started working in February to articulate the values that guide our work as a Women's Center team. And this proved to be a little more challenging than we had anticipated when we started out. First, as I said, we started in February and we thought we'd be able to do all of this work in person. Instead, we had to pivot to finishing it remotely. But I'm really proud of the work we did. It's not easy to do difficult, challenging conversations over Zoom, and we did. The other thing that made working out the values challenging for us in a good way is that while at bedrock, we are all operating from a very similar common set of values, and we're all engaging with the students who come to us. The students who come to us come for 2 very different reasons. Some of us work with students who are coming to the Women's Center for help, and some of us work with students who are coming to the Women's Center to help. Little tiny preposition difference, but it's one that really, really matters and makes a difference in how we're engaging with the students and what they're looking to get when they come here. But so we've worked on this for the last few months. We'll be rolling these out to the students when they return next week, and we're really proud of the work we did on it. We look at this articulation of our values as part of our ongoing conversations about how we engage with diverse groups of students, how we do outreach to them, and how we offer support to them so that their time at UVA can be the best experience that they hope for. We also see this internal teamwork that we've been doing as aligned with or part of the call for inclusive excellence that Kevin McDonald in the Office of Diversity and Equity has introduced. And our next step as a staff will be to look at the racial equity task force report, and to see how and where our work fits in there and how we can amplify that work. We also see this as part of, or one of our contributions to the on-grounds conversation about racial justice. And our particular contribution to that, or one of our most important ones, is to amplify the voices of women of color. And we have a couple of initiatives that do that. We have established an annual speaker that we bring in during the community Martin Luther King celebration, highlighting a different Black woman intellectual each year. We've brought in Loretta Ross, Brittany Cooper, Morgan Jerkins last year, and very soon I hope to be able to announce who we'll be bringing in this year. Another initiative we've done is we've started a reading challenge this year. We launched it back in January. It feels like a lifetime ago. It's called the 2020 Challenge, where we're encouraging people to read 20 books by women of color in 2020. When we launched it, we had no idea that people would be sheltering at home with more time to read. So hopefully folks are enjoying the selections on this list. We have copies in the center, but we also maintain the list on Goodreads for anyone who wants to participate from afar, which at the moment is everyone. Another initiative that we started last spring is a podcast called Speaking in Hues. This is the brainchild of Jaronda Miller-Bryant, who's the program director of Engaged Scholarship. She had a thought to start a way to talk about the experience of women of color, particularly students, across grounds. And one of the things she was interested in was taking a look at all of the data that we have and putting stories with those numbers. And then you should hopefully see my mouse moving a bit on the screen. Liz and Marwa, who were fourth years last year, also wanted to, they worked on IRIS with us. They were also interested in hosting a podcast about student experiences. So Jaronda and Mary Esselman, who's the editor of IRA, teamed up to work with them and develop Speaking in Hues. They recorded their first season last spring. Those episodes are available now, and in a couple weeks they will start recording the next season's worth of episodes. If you are looking to hear smart student conversation about what life is like for them here on grounds right now, I highly recommend you check this out. It's something that we are thrilled to sponsor. And it's a great example of how our staff members are teaming up to launch new initiatives and the ways that they are supporting student growth and professional development and offering the resources to students to create something that will live on after they leave grounds. Other outreach that we have going on includes the teaching that some of us on staff do. I'll talk a little bit more about the intern class in the second half of this afternoon's presentation, but Genevieve Brackens teaches that. She also runs the workshop for the Men's Leadership Project. Jaronda teaches the class issues facing adolescent girls for the YWLP facilitators, and Sarah Jenkins assists her with that. And just this last spring, I was able to teach a class for WGS, a class I've taught several times before called Politics of Motherhood. It was a wonderful, fantastic time, even with the remote pivot at spring break. And I'm looking forward to most likely teaching it again this upcoming year during J term. Another area of strength that we're really excited to highlight is our counseling team. Margaret Edwards, who's the Program Director of Counseling and Wellness, has recorded a short clip to introduce you to the team. So I'm going to play that, and then I'll come back and give you some more details. 1 second.
Hi, I'm Margaret Edwards, Program Director for Counseling and Wellness Services here at the Women's Center. This program has grown considerably in the last several years with the support of the university and our community. Staffed by a team of 7, including myself, we offer individual and group counseling primarily to students who, for financial or other reasons, cannot access counseling in the community. We also see some faculty and staff in similar situations. Most of our clients come seeking help due to an issue with sexual assault, intimate partner violence, other trauma, relationships concerns, eating issues, depression, anxiety, and mood issues. Virtually all are financially challenged. Some are first-generation college students, others are first-generation Americans, or their parents are. About half of our clients affirm an identity other than white. We also see people of all sexual and gender identities. Our primary task is to help our clients heal from trauma, as well as meet their goals for their mental health and facilitate their agency so that they can engage fully in the UVA experience they had hoped for when they first came here. Last year, we provided over 27 hours of individual counseling. In addition, we ran a sexual assault recovery group. We offered office hours for the RAs who needed consults on how to handle a student issue. We engaged in animal-assisted wellness and therapy. We provided trainings and outreach to hundreds of students and staff on a variety of mental health issues. And we facilitated referrals to related services for academic support, psychiatry, housing, food assistance, and other things that are absolutely foundational to student mental health. In March of this year, we pivoted like everybody. But we pivoted to using a secure platform designed specifically for web-based virtual counseling. And we use Zoom for our trainings and outreach. This has allowed us to continue our counseling and wellness services during the pandemic.
So as Margaret said, they last year provided close to 2,800 hours worth of counseling. Just want to put that number out there up front. Last year, after years of support and advocacy from Women's Center friends like those of you here on the call tonight, we received funding for multiple positions over the past few years, and we are now at full staffing. We are actually beyond our plan for full staffing now. When I got here, there were 4 counselors with full-time permanent lines and a 5th counselor who was part-time and was paid with soft money. And I worked with first Charlotte Chapman and then Margaret to develop a plan to secure permanent funding for that 5th position. And as I said, thank you to the support and advocacy of our friends like you, and the Provost's office recognizing the value of the work that our counseling team does and the services they provide. We now have 6.5 full-time lines, and that 7th person is funded half with full permanent state funding and the other half with donor money. So as I said, the plan was for 5, and we are now at 7. Keep that in mind as I talk about some of the things that the counselors are doing, both in this segment and in the second half of this afternoon's presentation. So I'm going to go back to that PowerPoint because you can see our team there. Okay. So this is our Fearless Counseling team. And their names line up across the bottom from left to right, so you can match them up. And I'm going to call out a few of the things that they are doing to support our students. Kathy and Janie are our 2 special trauma counselors. So they are while all of the counselors see some trauma cases, Kathy and Janie specialize in it, and they see the most complex trauma cases. And they are both heavily invested in continuing to develop their counseling skills and adding new treatment modalities to their toolkit. So Kathy works with Poe. Kathy belongs to Poe, and she provides animal-assisted therapy with Poe and is exploring new ways to incorporate that into her counseling sessions. And Janie just became certified to offer EMDR, eye movement desensitization response, I believe is the R. It's a highly effective therapy treatment, particularly for folks who have experienced trauma. And so she is excited to be able to offer that now. Aisha and Uriel are the two newest members of our team, and they bring with them experience counseling clients from a variety of cultural backgrounds, as well as the ability to offer counseling in languages other than English. So with their addition to the team, we can now offer counseling in English, Spanish, Urdu, Hindi, German, and French, which has been an enormous benefit to the community. Margaret, having stepped into the program director position, is continuing to share her knowledge and skills with Uriel and Amelia, who are both counselors in residence working towards full licensure. So she is passing on those skills as she mentors them through this process. And then, sorry, Aisha and Latoria, in addition to their work with the counseling team, so Aisha providing therapy sessions and Latoria providing case management, they are also providing supervision to some of our internship teams. Aisha now works with the body positive team, and Latoria will be taking on working with the gender violence and social change team this fall. She'll be drawing on her experience prior to coming to UVA, working with the Shelter for Help and Emergency, and Sarah, the Sexual Assault Resource Agency, to local agencies to bring that expertise to our interns on that team. And Aisha is drawing on her previous experience working with survivors of sex trafficking, where she developed a real deep expertise in the role that social media and body images play in susceptibility to that. And she'll be bringing that knowledge to working with the body positive team. She's also being trained in the Body Project and will be ready to guide the interns in offering that. Additionally, the whole team continues to work on developing new outreach and training to offer psychoeducation to the community, particularly embracing the wellness part of their title. That was something when I was advertising for the position that Margaret took, that we added in, thinking about ways that we can contribute to the well-being of the community and do some proactive work on that front. So that is our counseling team and our updates there. I'm gonna pause the screen sharing there and pause my presentation to see if there are any questions on this first half. And unlike some of you, I am gonna take a sip on screen.
A quick question, congratulations on being able to continue the important services and doing it remotely. How much the difference or have you seen in, I hesitate to say need, but students actually asking for help? Has it stayed the same? Has it gone up? Have they been more reluctant because there's not the in-person? Just how has that worked?
So this is Gretchen, right?
Yes.
Great. Sorry, I'm guessing on the voice. Thanks, Gretchen. That's a great question. And I can half answer it. And that half that I can answer it on is on the counseling front. And we've seen no decline and possibly an increase in interest there. There's slight challenges with it in that our counselors are only licensed to practice in the state of Virginia, which means that they can only serve clients who are physically located within the state at the moment of their counseling session. So we did not have the leisurely spring break that we normally have this year, but I am very grateful spring break fell when it did, because it gave us the opportunity to look at what we saw happening nationally with COVID. a good friend of mine runs the Women's Center at Vanderbilt, and Monday of that week, she texted me and told me that Vanderbilt was going remote, and I'd seen that either Princeton or Harvard was, and then maybe Duke, and I felt like we were encompassed within a triangle of peers, and that if they all were, it was just a matter of time before we did. And so we spent that week preparing for it. And so the counselors very quickly, instead of taking spring break off, researched what it would mean to provide counseling services remotely and to take on telehealth. And they found the right platform for it. And by the time classes restarted, they were providing sessions that way. In the spring, about 90% of their clients stayed within the state, and so they kept their weekly sessions with them. The other 10%, they have continued to do phone call check-ins with, and if those clients were interested, they helped them get referrals and find providers in their states so that they could continue with their therapy sessions. And not surprisingly, clients, one, continued through the summer in a way that they would not normally. Normally, the end of the semester comes, they wrap up services, they go home. There's a really natural built-in break. With everything being online, there wasn't that, and they were processing the additional trauma of dealing with everything that came with coronavirus. And then as the protests for racial justice heated up at the end of May through June and July, processing that as well. So clients have stayed with us longer than they typically would. And we've got most likely a full caseload for the fall going forward. So no real difference, if not a slight increase on the counseling front. Students on the program side, students seem to stay engaged through the spring as we pivoted and offered things virtually that we normally would have done in person. The other thing we typically do over spring break is make our selection of interns for the upcoming year. So those of us who work with interns did do that. I believe that all of the ones, I think there was one exception, which is fairly typical. All the ones that we offered an internship to for the fall have accepted it. Some have come back to town, some are still at home, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the internship in the second half. But so we don't see a change there. And then the part I really can't answer is how will students stay engaged in the fall? Will they come to our virtual events? Will they reach out if they need help other than counseling? We are cautiously optimistic. This is a generation that is incredibly savvy about seeking out resources and identifying what their needs are. And we've got a great social media team in place. So I am optimistic that that will continue, that they will find us.
Thank you. I actually wasn't going to ask about the fall because I have a clue of how loaded that question is. So I wasn't even going to go there.
You know, I keep thinking if I can figure out what my child is doing for school, I can figure out the rest of my life for the fall, but I'm not there yet. But we do, within the center, have plans for the fall that I'll talk about next. Are there other questions, particularly about counseling or our outreach to the community on the front of amplifying the voices of women of color? I'm taking that as a no then. So I will transition because as Gretchen and I just alluded to, it's 2020. That is my answer to so many things these days. And I'm sure it doesn't surprise you that that poses some challenges for us, but we also see some exciting opportunities. So we are doing our best. The team has worked really hard all summer to prepare to meet those challenges, and then excited to think about what the opportunities mean for us. I'm going back to the slideshow. The first 3 slides that I'll show you, I'm going to go through fairly quickly. As Leanne prepared this for me, she gave me 3 options and I did not want to choose. I liked them all. And that's because they are looking at our mentoring programs. So if you hear me say YWLP and you wonder what I mean, that's the Young Women Leaders Program, and they are entering their 27th year, I believe, of serving the Charlottesville community middle schools. And the Men's Leadership Project is a little bit younger. It's about 12 or 13 years old. And these two programs partner up UVA students with area 7th and 8th graders. There's some of the bigs. And I'll stop the share there for a second. For a year-long mentorship program. Genevieve Brackens is the coordinator for MLP, and Sarah Jenkins is the coordinator for YWLP. And they have spent all summer arranging a multitude of plans based on any possible configuration of in-school versus virtual provision of education by the city and county schools. And at the moment, they are prepared to move ahead with these mentoring programs through at least the first quarter, providing the mentoring virtually. About 3 or 4 weeks ago, the county and then shortly thereafter, the city both announced that they would start the semesters virtually, and they will run that way through November 8th, and then they will reassess. So they, Genevieve and Sarah are recruiting a strong team of bigs. The schools are helping them recruit littles who are excited to join the programs. And they'll be guiding the bigs through offering that mentorship virtually as a really, really important complement to what the students will be getting from school. Every year I get to visit them for their orientations, the bigs, and I tell them, having taught middle school in a former life myself, and having survived middle school, and now being really close to surviving middle school as the mother of a middle schooler, every year I tell them how important what they do is, but this year, even more so, because the kids that they'll be working with are kids who were sent home abruptly in March, many of whom had little to no contact with their school, based in part because of internet issues, and because who was prepared to do this on a pivot. And so we'll be preparing the bigs to come in and provide a really important support to them. Another area that has challenges and opportunities is our internship program. When I first got here, we had about 25 to 30 students doing the internship every year. And they took a course in the fall, and then in the spring, they did an independent study. And every year, 1 or 2 came back for a second go round. Under Jaronda's lead, we've developed this internship a lot. I'm actually going to pause here for a second and share a clip of Jaronda talking about the internship program and the rest of Engaged Scholarship, and then I'll delve more into some of the details with that.
Hello, my name is Jaronda Miller-Bryant, and I am the Program Director for Engaged Scholarship and Global Outreach at the Women's Center. I also serve as the Program Director of Operations for the Young Women Leaders Program, which I'll tell you more about in just a few minutes. But I'm truly excited to have a few minutes to tell you about this particular arm of the Women's Center, Engaged Scholarship. It's very exciting to me. I absolutely love the work that I do here, working with the Women's Center staff and working with the interns that we receive. It's very exciting work, so I'm happy to share it with you. So just to tell you a little bit about what Engaged Scholarship is, because sometimes this is confusing to people. They think it means like research, or it means, you know, something that they're just not really familiar with. But Engaged Scholarship is essentially the merging of academics, like learning in a classroom, and also experiential experiences, so real world experiences. And so what we do at the Women's Center is we provide or offer this as an opportunity for UVA students to work at the Women's Center and contribute to community change work and social justice work, but also to learn and partner with academics to make that a beneficial experience for them. And so that is essentially what Engaged Scholarship is. Excuse me. But at the Women's Center, under Engaged Scholarship, under our umbrella, we have 9 different programs that we offer. And I won't go through all of those with you, but I'm sure Abby will talk more about those as you all spend more time with her. But we have programs like Engaged Scholarship, which is, again, the umbrella, but also a program. We have Body Positive, Gender Violence and Social Change, we have Legal Clinic. We have lots of programs, at least 9, where we invite approximately 30 UVA undergraduate students to come and work with us at the Women's Center in an internship program. So every year we get some fantastic students who are just amazing to work with, have lots of great ideas, lots of great energy. And I always tell them, and I'll tell anybody, that they are the lifeblood of the Women's Center. They really are the reason why we're here and do this work. So Engaged Scholarship includes those 9 different programs. And it's really important for us to model, how to do this work for students as they leave the university or as they continue on after leaving the Women's Center. So we spend a lot of time really instilling in them like what this work entails. How do you take care of yourself doing this work? Because it can be a little tiring to constantly be looking at your community around you and figuring out how you can be a social change agent in that community. So it's hard work, but it's good work. And, we encourage our students to kind of grapple with some of the tough questions that they come across, being aware and being and recognizing that they have a voice, that they can actually invoke change here. So that's Engaged Scholarship. We have a few other things that I want to talk to you about. Specifically under those programs, we have the YWLP program, which is one of our longest running programs, one of our bigger programs. As I said, I work as the program director for operations for that. It's a mentoring program that we've had for at least, 1997. I guess that's 23 years here in Charlottesville, where we pair UVA women with middle school girls in the Charlottesville community, 4 different middle schools, for a year-long mentoring experience. That program has been widely successful, and it's also an Engaged Scholarship portion to that because there is a course that they all take that helps them to be better mentors. So those are the big pieces that we have for Engaged Scholarship, and I'm happy to answer any questions after this, but I'm sure Abby can tell you more about what we do and how these programs work.
Okay. So, sorry, I'm stuck in my PowerPoint. Sorry about that. I lost my screen for a second. So as you could hear Jaronda talking, hopefully you could hear she doesn't toot her own horn very well, but she has put a lot of work into developing the Engaged Scholarship program and the internship that goes with it. And so under her lead, we went from the course plus the independent study that was in place when I got here to a more fleshed out 2-course sequence that the interns take in their first year of working with us, one in the fall, one in the spring. And then we have developed opportunities for students to return for additional years interning with us. Last year, we piloted a senior internship program that is now a competitive paid opportunity. And we are thrilled that this year we are able to continue offering it again on a paid basis. And this year we have 10 senior interns returning. Jaronda said we have about 30 interns. She was undercounting. I think she doesn't always think about like how much we've grown to try and keep it feeling manageable. But we've gone from roughly 30 to 40 interns this year who will be working with us. I will show you those slides again. Here we go. So you can see the team. This, to assure you, is last year's team. We do not have this year's all gathered together maskless on the steps of the Women's Center. And then you can see the 9 different teams on the left-hand side of the screen that students are able to intern with. Last year, one of the things that program directors did was to undertake an internal program review of each of those individual teams, and they'll be using the insights from those reviews this year as they're planning out their virtual offerings for the year. So we're excited to see how students engage with those offerings. Other challenges that we see this year, many of you know that our space was recently renovated, and it's become a very, very homey, welcoming space. And there are some services we provide that are very much space-based. I'm gonna stop the share for the moment. Very much space-based. These include the room to breathe, our study spaces, our food pantry, our library, and we are very proud of those offerings. We're thrilled by the university support that has enabled them. The Parents Fund has supported the food pantry and the study spaces, and the UVA Women's Club has supported the room to breathe. Some of those we've been able to pivot, and we will still be able to offer on a socially distanced way. That in particular is the food pantry. We're working out open hours where students can come pick up grab and go food offerings. We pride ourselves here on being nimble and adjusting to changes. And we had to, with sadness, recognize that the responsible thing to do is to not go for fulfilling our vision of having a space with students streaming in and out right now this fall. So the study spaces and the room to breathe are not currently available. And it makes us sad, but that feels like the responsible thing to do in this moment to keep everyone as safe as possible. And we're thinking about all the different ways that we can create that same sense of hominess for students in a virtual world. The final thing that I'm going to touch on as both a challenge and an opportunity in this section is a big one. This is in the Title IX realm, so Title IX is the federal regulation that guides how the university responds to reports of sexual assault and violence. Some of you may know that the Department of Education early in the summer released new regulations for how universities would deal with these reports, and UVA, these all had to be put in place by last Friday, and UVA announced their new process last Friday. Margaret and I are working closely with our colleagues in the Title IX office, including Emily Babb, to fully process what these new procedures mean and to determine what role the Women's Center has in assisting in this realm moving forward. So we'll have more to say about that shortly. We have a meeting scheduled with her later this week. But you also, many of you know, maybe all of you know, that Claire Kaplan, our longtime program director of gender violence and social change, retired at the end of the academic year. And so this leaves a gap in our services here. And so we are taking this moment where the Title IX processes across the university are changing. And we are working remotely, and some colleagues in units that we partner with closely are in the middle of making some hires. We are taking this moment to assess what our work is in this realm and where is the Women's Center best positioned to contribute to making the university a violence-free place. So for this year moving forward, Latoria White, who I've mentioned earlier on the counseling team, will be stepping in to provide supervision to the gender violence and social change interns. As part of that, they'll be looking at the survivor support network trainings that Claire had developed. With the changes in the Title IX process, they'll need to be revised. So they'll be taking on that work as well. And so we will be continuing to be a voice for safety and healing across the university. It's just a moment where I can't exactly lay out for you what that will look like. And that last piece touches on some of the other opportunities that I see us having in this moment. We have strong partnerships across the university that we'll continue drawing on. A moment of celebration. When classes start next week, this will mark the 100th anniversary of women studying at UVA in graduate and professional programs for their degrees, and the 50th anniversary of the arrival of the first fully co-ed class of women at the college. I've convened a committee of colleagues across grounds to help me with planning, and we've partnered up with the Alumni Association. 2020 keeps rearing its head and making us pivot and adjust, but we are committed to telling these stories, listening, finding them, telling them, and celebrating the spirit and tenacity that it took on the part of untold numbers of women to open up the university to everyone. We also partner with, as I've mentioned, colleagues in Title IX and EOCR, the Equal Opportunity and Civil Rights Office, partners working in the gender violence realm, like the Office for Health Promotion, our colleagues in WGS, both with our teaching and in co-sponsoring each other's events. And we work with the Cornerstone program. We've sponsored a number of projects for them. That is a faculty and staff professional development leadership program that HR offers. And I've served as chair for the last year and the upcoming year of the Women's Leadership Council, which has given me a chance to interact with women in leadership positions across the university and to collaborate to advocate for things like equitable tenure and promotion processes that pay attention to gender and racial differences, efforts to recruit, retain, and promote diverse faculty, efforts to support women through things like needing access to childcare and things like that. And then a number of us have served on search committees as well. So we are really proud and happy to partner with colleagues across grounds on those various realms. Okay. So I'm going to pause there to see if you have questions, anything in general, but specifically the mentorship programs, the internship program, the Title IX sexual assault realm, or our partnerships across grounds. And you are welcome to either unmute yourself and ask or to pop something into the chat.
Abby, I just wanted to say how impressed and just how moved I am by everything that you are doing. And I'm especially struck by your creativity and the creativity of your team and the students who are working with you to meet this moment, to meet this COVID moment, to meet this moment of a kind of force and passion around racial justice, and that the Women's Center is right there, that you are creating and being there for students and for others, as what you just said points out. I just thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. You left such a firm, strong foundation for us to build on. So thank you. That means a lot. And you're right, I am excited. It's been a long 5.5 months. But I'm excited and so proud of the work that the staff has done to pivot us online in March, and then over the summer to prepare to take on a year. I mean, we're ready to do it all remote. We'll be thrilled if we're wrong about that. But I'm really proud of the work they've done. And our students, particularly the senior interns, they've started working early this summer. I'm sure they're all very responsible, so they're sheltering in place, and I'm sure there's an element of this gives them something to do other than stare at four walls around them. But they really have seen what they and their peers need, and they've started talking to us about how we can address that. And they are our best guideposts on what is needed. So some outreach we started this year specifically for transfer students is because one of our interns came to us and said, I was a transfer student and I felt lost until I found the Women's Center. What can we do to help others feel less lost? And so, yeah, we're just thrilled to work with them. As Jaronda said in her clip, they are our lifeblood. So thank you, Sharon. Are there other questions I can answer?
Hi, Melissa Richards here, class of 93.
Hi.
Abby, that's a fantastic presentation. Thank you for the update on resources and programming. It's really impressive. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on capacity and usage. I mean, do you feel that you can't meet the needs, you can't meet the demand? I'd love to see some numbers, some data later, but I'd love to just hear in your own words if you feel like you're able to meet needs of the students.
Can I just ask for clarification, Melissa? When you say, can we meet the demand, do you mean for counseling or for other services?
All of it. Yeah, I mean, counseling in particular, but even for your programming, do you feel that you have a good ratio of staff and volunteers and student workers to the number of people who participate in programming?
Thank you. That is a great question. So one, I will say in terms of staffing, honestly, we have an embarrassment of riches. When I travel and I go to other women's centers, or I'm in that distant past when we went to conferences and I'm meeting up with colleagues from women's centers across the country. Honestly, I refuse, if I can at all, with politeness, to tell them how many staff members work at the Women's Center, because nobody that I know of has even half of the number we have. And we do a number of specific programs, which is part of why we have that many. Few, if any, have a journal the way we have Iris, and one of our team members is devoted to that. None of them run a mentoring program like YWLP, and half of Jaronda's time and all of Sarah's time is to that, and so on. So I would say in terms of the programming side, we have a good number. And I have a really strong administrative team supporting me. So I feel like for capacity, we're spot on there. And then in terms of ability to come to programs, like we are able to offer, I think, the right number of things. We get good turnout. We've been working on increasing turnout. And then this year will be the wild card. Who knows how that will go. One area on the program side that we've been paying attention to for the last couple of years, and we want to put more concentrated effort in, is in recruitment for the internship. If you look at our demographics for who interns with us, they do largely track with the overall demographics of UVA. But we like to think our interns are special, and we'd love to make sure that as many students who would be interested in an experience like this know that it exists, and they know how to fit it into the rest of their time obligations. That's one of the reasons we were excited to try piloting the senior internship as a paid opportunity last year, and we were thrilled that we were able to continue it this year. Because the ability to do our internship for pay is the difference for at least half of the senior interns with their ability to come back and work with us again versus having to go find a job, maybe waitressing across the street from me, to earn the money they need to finish up their time here. In terms of counseling capacity, so Wynn is on the call. She and I talk about this often. We both see counseling as akin to something like Spanish classes, in that it does not matter how many or how much access you offer, there is always a greater demand. And we are really sensitive to the fact that there is a greater need for counseling services across the university than the university is currently able to meet. We're not the answer for that, though, unfortunately. We are really at capacity in terms of the ability of any one person to supervise the whole team. If we brought in more counselors, we would need another supervisor. But we also have worked to grow that team while maintaining a balance in our offerings between counseling or recovery services and educational professional development or growth opportunities. And so if we grew counseling more, that would really skew that balance. And our counselors work really closely with their colleagues across grounds, particularly in CAPS and the counselors over at the Curry School, and with the counselors in the community, the local providers, to help students find the right setting for them. So last year, they provided, don't quote me on these numbers, but I'm pretty sure I'm right, 2,815 hours of counseling, roughly 2,150 hours of case management. That's a little harder to track because it's not always solid hours. They served 135 students, 75% of whom came from more than 8 sessions. So we really are a long-term counseling model. And they made 257 referrals or matches to providers, either someone else on grounds or in the Charlottesville community. So the students who reach out to us who were not able to set up with one of our counselors, we are getting them connected with someone either on grounds or in the community to help get those resources. And of the 135 clients that they saw last year, 130 of them had economic constraints that prohibited them from seeing someone who they have to pay to see. So we are trying to prioritize those who there are not other options for, either because they cannot afford copays or they don't have a way to access someone off grounds. Does that answer your question, Melissa?
Yes, thank you very much. And you answered my follow-up question as well, which is whether you provide long-term care or you have a partner to whom you refer them after a certain number of sessions. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. We provide long-term care. There are some students who get started with us in their first year and they graduate from us when they graduate from UVA. We are the long-term partner on grounds that CAPS and other clinics end up partnering up with. Are there other questions?
I have a quick question. First, thank you and Leanne and Sharon, obviously, for all the work you've done. I've seen it grow over the years and I'm really impressed. And it's definitely a needed service, so thank you. I mean, it's really wonderful to see all the work you all are doing. I know the Student Health and Wellness Center is rolling out their new building. Are they going to incorporate you all in that, or are you going to be okay? So how will I know they're doing a big, they're reaching out to parents and families and students, letting them know what's going on with that. How will they make sure that they know where you are as well, and you all won't get lost in the shuffle with the new center?
Thanks, Sanford. That's a great question. And I'm going to thank the Parents Fund through you. Sorry, that grammar came out weird, but thank you for your support. No, the Student Wellness Services is a Office of the Student, Office of the Dean of Students unit, and we are a Provost Office unit. So 2 different sections of the university, and they're not going to forget where we are. The one counselor each week has been coming by to check the fax machine for faxes from student health coming over to them. And we were a little worried when we had to move out for the renovations. Would students find us again when we came back to the corner? And they did. I I guess I don't have a great poker face, so I could hear as you were asking the question that my expression answered it, but no, we are staying separate units because we have two, I think, really different missions. And for us, it's about contributing to not that it isn't for them either, but contributing to the fullest flourishing for students so that they can make the most of their time here at UVA. And we see that difference in the way our counseling works. They take a more medicalized approach. We take a more sort of empowerment-based, strengths-based, long-term growth, and they're of the more short-term stabilization model. And so it helps, I think, to have us separate, that the two models are separate. But no, I'm confident that when they move back in there, they're not going to forget where we are. Because we also partner closely with the team in the Office of Health Promotion, and they'll be in the building when it opens as well. We are nearing the end of our time. I'm going to share my screen one last time to show you some upcoming events that you can watch out for. Because again, challenges and opportunities, the opportunity being that while we cannot safely gather people on grounds, we're doing everything virtually, so you can watch for these events and participate in them from wherever you are. So most of you know that the Women's Center is the steward for the Distinguished Alumna Award. We typically present it in the spring. We did make the selection last spring. We honored 2 alumnae of the class of '79, Nancy Hallegy from the School of Nursing and Marian Weiss from the School of Architecture. And we sort of cheated in picking 2 because it's 2020 and we're celebrating these milestones of women's education. And there's some really interesting overlaps between Nancy and Marian's careers and their approaches to their fields and their engagement in community and how they use their professional work to build community. But we also felt that they represented 2 really different ways into education at UVA. Nancy coming in through nursing, the first school to officially let women in to study, and Marian coming in through architecture, a typically masculine field, and one of the last schools to go fully co-ed. So we felt like their paths represented 2 important parts of the journey. We'll be doing a virtual event to officially present them with the award near the end of September on Wednesday, September 23rd at 5 in the evening. So watch for that invitation. We'd love to have you join us for that online. As I mentioned earlier, I've been working with colleagues to plan celebrations of women's education. Originally, there was going to be a large on-grounds event the weekend of September 24th through the 26th, and clearly we cannot, in a safe, responsible way, do that right now. So that larger event has been postponed till next fall because we do think it's important to gather people in person to celebrate all of the women who brought about the UVA we see today. But there will be a shorter afternoon-long virtual event on October 10th. So you can sign up for that through the Retold site that I showed you a second ago. There we go. That's hosted on the alumni website. And then later in November, I'll be doing a Lifetime Learning event on the history of women on the faculty at UVA. So Lifetime Learning will be advertising that. You can find your way in through there. And then we don't have it on the slide, but in January, we'll have our annual Martin Luther King speaker. And I'm hopeful the woman I've reached out to agrees because she's a powerhouse speaker. And so we look forward to being able to announce that as well. Okay. So I'm going to stop there. If anyone has any last questions, I'm happy to take it. And then when we're finished, we know that one of the things you all enjoy when we host in-person gatherings is the chance to stay around and chat with each other. So once we're sure your questions for me are done, Leanne will take us off of the speaker spotlight so that you can see each other. And if you'd like to stay on and chat, we can recording, but keep the call going. But first, are there any last questions for me? Okay, so I think you all know where to find me online. Sometimes you can even find me here in the center. But if things come up for you later on, I'm more than happy to answer questions via email or to schedule a call. We are really grateful here at the Women's Center for the support you all have shown us through the years. As we've thought about how to pivot and how to be creative and how to support our students through this moment that I'm fairly confident is unlike anything any of us have experienced before. We draw on the support and encouragement you all have shown us through the years. So thank you for that. We are really grateful.